Hi everyone, welcome to Essy Cooks and happy holidays. If you're celebrating the holidays right now, we are going to make a sheet pan holiday meal. You can eat this at any time, but it is especially perfect for a vegan Thanksgiving or vegan Christmas, or if you just have plant-based guests coming over and you want to make something for them. Definitely try this out. We're going to be using one sheet pan, but we do have to do a little bit of prep and boiling first. So we're going to start with our Brussels sprouts. So I have about 2 cups of small Brussels sprouts here. It's around 250 grams or so. And so you can just see there, like if you don't know how many grams or anything like that, just around 2 cups, 2.5 cups there of Brussels sprouts that are small and packed right in. So we're going to just wash those really thoroughly in a bowl of cold water, swirl them around really well. Brussels sprouts do tend to get quite a bit of dirt in them, so we want to make sure we're getting all of that out. And now I've got my potatoes here. So I have about 400 grams of potatoes. So this just gives you a little visual of how many potatoes. Now, if you like a lot of potatoes, you may want to double that. And I'm going to go over that in a few minutes. Now back to the Brussels. We want to peel off those outer leaves. Any of those outer leaves that are looking discolored or you can't get the dirt off them, you can either peel them off, or I'll show you another way to do it as well. And we're going to cut off the hard ends on the Brussels sprouts. And we're going to cut them in half lengthwise. This is just going to make them super tasty and delicious. So if you're already an expert at Brussels sprouts, just pass right by this part. Basically wash, peel, and cut in half. So you can see there, that's perfectly what we are looking for. Now, if you like a lot of vegetables as well, you may want to double the vegetables. I mean, it really depends. The way that I'm doing it, gives you a little taste of everything. But if you're like a holiday meal, that does not look like enough potatoes for 4 people. Totally fine, just double the batch. Now you can even see, look at that dirty exterior leaf. It's yellow, it's discolored. Like, that's just not what we're looking for. So what you can do, you can compost those. You could peel it off, but it's a bit hard to do, right? So what you can do is grab just your knife, utility knife, whatever kitchen knife you have, and just cut a small incision into the side there, and it'll pop right off. So there's 2 leaves that I want to remove on the outside. Just a little incision on the side there, and peel those leaves right off so easily. So you can see how much better and cleaner it looks on the inside there. We want to make sure they're super clean and everything like that. Brussels sprouts can be a little bit tricky that way. It can be a little bit of work, but they are so worth it, and they are so good for you. All right, now next up, here are potatoes, which I peeled. I thought that would be boring for you guys to watch, so just peel the potatoes as you like. And now we're going to cut them into nice little, almost like bite-sized wedges. You can do what you like here, but you want them to be fairly small pieces so that they're not going to take too long to roast. Plus, we want to get them super crispy because we want these to be crispy roasted potatoes. So like I said, if you are going to double batch these, what I would do is grab a second baking sheet. I'm going to be fitting this all on one baking sheet, and it's going to serve 4 people. But if you're like, friend, that is not enough potatoes for my holiday dinner, I totally get that, because I don't think this was enough potatoes for me, considering that's one of my highlights, is to just eat a bunch of potatoes and just cover them in gravy in the holidays. But if you just like a little taste, there you go. There's the size that we're looking for. Now we're going to do up 4 large carrots because these were garden fresh. I felt like I just didn't need to peel them, but if you want, you can peel the carrots. So I'm just going to cut the ends off, and we're going to cut them into about, I guess, 2-inch pieces. Now, some of the ends here, you don't have to cut them in half because they're already quite thin, so you can just leave them just like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and just cut these other ones in half again so that they're in nice little flat pieces. So everything's going to cook through equally, evenly, all of that. And of course, I had to save a piece of carrot for my dog.
Oh. Okay, that's really messy.
All right, I washed my hands quickly after that, washed the couch, and look at that there. Everything is cut up and ready to go. Now, I've got a sort of medium to large saucepan pot here. Don't put water in it yet. We're going to first put the potatoes in, those nice little potato slices, because we're going to be covering them with cold water. Covering them with cold water is important. And our next important step is putting half a teaspoon of baking soda in with the potatoes, because this is what's going to help make them super crispy. So don't skip any of these steps, because all of these things really do add up in making us a super crispy potato, which who wouldn't want that? So we're going to cover those with cold water, but not just cover. Add enough room so that we can add the Brussels sprouts and the carrots in later on. So that's cold water. Add a dash of salt, which I didn't show for some reason. Put the lid on and bring it to a boil. This could take a little bit of time depending on your stove, just because we are doing it with cold water. Now we're going to add our carrots in, and we're going to cook those for, just reduce it to a rapid simmer. There's my salt that I forgot to add, and cook those for about 5 minutes. And now quickly, while those are cooking for 5 minutes, I'm going to start preparing the breading for my tofu. So I've got 2 tablespoons of olive oil in one bowl, and then my other bowl, I'm going to make the breading coating with a 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast. It seems like a lot, but honestly it makes it taste so good. And I've got 2 tablespoons or 1/8 cup of oat flour. You can use any all-purpose flour that you like. I just had oat flour and wanted to add that. I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of poultry seasoning. We're going to make this with all the holiday flavors. 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder and 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. That's kind of our start. But what we're going to do next is add in some of those delicious holiday spices that are going to complement the poultry seasoning as well. So if you have fresh, great. I have some just kind of dried from the garden here, from my Nona's garden. Yum, so good. So I'm going to grab about 2 sage leaves. If you have 2 fresh sage leaves, you can finely chop them up, or you can use 1/2 teaspoon of dried sage. So I've got my dried ones here. I'm just going to crumble that into a nice tiny little, I don't know what to call it, into tiny little flakes. So I'm going to add those right in there. You can add as much sage or thyme as you like. I feel like these are 2 of the essential sort of holiday flavors, but it's up to you. You can play around with this a bit if you like. So I'm just removing the thyme. I've got a couple sprigs of thyme, or 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme would be perfect in here as well. And I need to hit it with some salt and pepper. I'm hearing the timer going off. I'm rapidly adding this in because it's time for me to add my Brussels sprouts into the boiling water. So salt and pepper to taste right into this same bowl, and this is our breading. And this is so tasty. You can make this at any time of the year, but it just really suits the holidays. So I'm just going to whisk that all together, make sure that all the ingredients are nicely combined, and then I'm going to grab my Brussels that I prepared earlier, my Brussels sprouts, and I'm going to add them in and let those cook parboil for about 3 to 5 minutes. Now, onto the tofu. As you can see, there's quite a few moving parts here, but this is a whole meal. So we have our extra firm tofu, 1 block, that's been drained and pressed. I like to actually freeze mine ahead of time. It adds so much texture. I'm going to cut that into 9 equal slabs, just like this. Now, my veggies are done, so I removed them, and I actually separated the potatoes from the rest of the vegetables because I need to chop up the sides a little bit to add texture to the sides of the potatoes, which another step you don't want to skip because it's going to make those potatoes super crispy. So I'm trying to do that with one hand. I'm going to go ahead, set the camera down, do 2 hands, and look at that texture. Look, that's exactly what we want. It's going to make them super crispy. Now I've got a large baking sheet with parchment paper just so that it's easy cleanup. This is a bit of work in the moment, but I think all holiday dinners are. And you can kind of clean as you go, and when everything comes out of the oven, there's not a ton of cleanup at that time, which is also super nice. You can just enjoy your holiday meal. So I've got my potatoes there, and I'm going to put a decent amount of extra virgin olive oil, at least 1 tablespoon. This is the holidays. If you want to do melted vegan butter, you do you. That's going to be delicious too. Either way, you want to make sure that those are well greased. We're going to add some salt. We're going to add some pepper. Very simple because we're going to be covering these in super rich vegan gravy later on, so you don't have to add a ton of different spices and seasonings to these. So I'm just going to toss those very gently with my hands and spread them out. This is another step. There are so many steps to these potatoes, I know, but trust me, they're worth it. So you want to make sure that you spread them all out evenly so that they can get crispy. Once again, all these different little things that we're doing are making these potatoes extra tasty and crispy, and it's all going to be worth it in the end. So we're going to pop those in the oven at 350 degrees. So we're going to leave those in there for about 10 minutes on their own. During that time, we are going to prepare our tofu. So grab one of those little tofu pieces, dunk it in the olive oil, and you can just kind of wipe off any excess oil. It's just enough to help the breading stick. Adds a nice flavor and everything to the tofu as well. And then just kind of toss it around in the breading, press it in if you need to. You want them pretty well coated in this delicious sage sort of breadcrumb coating. It's so good. And the beauty of this is we're going to get some protein in with our meal, so we're going to be feeling really good about that as well. But if you want to see something different, I do have, if you're not a big fan of tofu or something like that, I do have a vegan lentil mushroom Wellington, which is amazing. It's really one of my favorite holiday centerpieces, and that one has protein in it as well from the walnuts, from the lentils, so that's another option too. Takes a little bit of extra effort. This one I love that it all comes together in one sheet pan, and I love this tofu, but I'm a tofu lover, so you can do whatever works for you. It's your holiday meal. You want to make sure that you are gonna love it. So I had to add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil into that bowl. I had a little bit of this left. You can toss that in a gravy or a soup or something. Just store it in the fridge until you're ready to use it. So I'm just going to set that aside because I don't want to waste it. And I have my beautiful sage crispy herb-crusted tofu steaks ready to go. So now it's been 10 minutes. I'm going to flip the potatoes so that they can just continue evenly crisping. And we're going to be using this same baking sheet to add in our crispy tofu. So I'm just going to line those up so that they fit all on the side. Again, if you have a little bit of room in between each of them, they are going to get crispier. And now I have my veggies. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. You know the drill by now. So I've got that all in there. I'm going to gently toss it. And once again, throwing this on the same baking tray. If you love to have extra veggies, you may want to double the amount of veggies as well. Like I said, with the potatoes, that's an option. Depends on how much food you have. It depends on what you're serving this with. I served it with homemade bread rolls, which were so good. And if you're adding a dessert, that's an extra piece as well. But my husband was missing the vegan stuffing, so I can put the recipe for that down below if that's something you're looking for. Now, we're going to make the gravy while this is roasting at 350 for 30 minutes. We're going to flip everything halfway, but we're going to start making the mushroom gravy. Now, if you don't like mushrooms, just remove the mushrooms completely from this recipe. I ended up finely dicing the mushrooms for this, but I'm going to just show you my old video of making the gravy. 8 ounces of cremini mushrooms or baby bella mushrooms. If you don't have those, white mushrooms will work. That's just kind of one standard small container of mushrooms, and I'm just going to cut those into nice little slices. And we have preheated a pan to medium heat, and I'm just going to add those mushrooms directly in there. I don't need to put any butter or oil. I'm just going to keep cooking these, and the juices will naturally come out of the mushrooms, which I know seems weird, but it totally works. So we're going to cook those until they're nice and lightly browned, and then we are going to add in our butter. So we're going to add in about 2 to 3 tablespoons of vegan butter and mix that all in. That's going to add some lovely richness to this dish, and then we are going to add in some spices for flavor. So next up we have some fresh thyme. Now, if you don't have fresh thyme, that's totally okay. You can put about half a teaspoon of dried thyme into this, but if you have fresh, you can put about a full teaspoon or however much you want to your liking. And we're going to mix that around into our mushroom gravy mixture here. You can smell it. It smells so good. Then we are going to add in 1 teaspoon of poultry seasoning and half a teaspoon of onion powder. That's going to add even more flavor and absolute deliciousness to this. Then we're going to add in a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, and I'm just going to mix that in with the mushrooms. You can whisk it, or you can mix it with a wooden spoon until everything is well combined and lightly toasted in the pan there. And then next we are going to add in 2 cups of either vegetable broth or beefless broth, and this is going to make it so delicious as well. So mix that all in together, and I'm going to add in 1 tablespoon of dark soy sauce, which is going to add a beautiful flavor. It smells so good, and it's also going to make it this amazing, gorgeous color. So you can just cook that right until it's thickened up how you like. You can adjust the thickness if you want. If you want it to be a little bit thinner, just add a little bit more water, thicker, a little bit more flour. Okay, the gravy is made, and it is time to pull that sheet pan right out of the oven. Make sure everything is crisped and lightly golden brown to your liking. If not, you can roast it a little bit longer, but whew, that is looking so good. The potatoes were so crispy, and honestly, these fresh carrots actually were an amazing addition, and absolutely loved the tofu for that sort of almost meaty texture and just the perfect vehicle for just dumping gravy on top. We're going to take a closer look at these delicious crispy sage tofu pieces, steaks, whatever you want to call them, and look at that. And of course, it's going to all need to be topped off with that mushroom gravy. And like I said, if you don't like mushrooms, you don't have to put mushrooms in the gravy. That's totally fine. You can serve this with vegan stuffing, you can serve it with bread rolls, you can serve it with a side salad, you can serve it with appetizers, whatever you want. It's your holiday meal, and I hope that you loved this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you loved it, make sure you hit like and subscribe.